Hi guys, welcome to another fishing tutorial. In this episode we're going to show you how to spool up a fishing reel. In this first demonstration we're going to show you how to spool up a reel with monofilament line without any backing. For more information on different line types and what line to use for different techniques of fishing, stick around to the end because we'll go through a simple guide to what line to use for what fishing. Place the new spooler line into a bucket. This will stop the line tangling or spraying off the spool too much. Take the end of the line and thread it backwards through the first eye of the fishing rod. This will make reeling the line onto the new spool easier. Now you need to tie your line to the new spool using an arbor knot. Pass your line around the spool and then tie an overhand knot around the main line. Tie a second overhand knot in the tag end an inch or two away from the first overhand knot. Moisten the knot with saliva to make sure that the friction doesn't burn your line as you tighten it down. Tighten the knot by pulling on the line. The second knot should bed down next to the first knot and settle in place against the spool. Now trim the tag end and you're ready to spool up. Open the bail arm and attach the spool to the reel. Close the bail arm and apply some tension onto the line through your hand which is holding the rod. Now you simply need to reel the line onto the spool until it's full. You want to leave a couple of millimeters away from the top of the spool to ensure you don't overfill the reel, as this can cause nasty tangles as too much line springs off the reel when you cast. Put your line in the clip, cut the line, and now you have a freshly spooled reel. Sometimes you don't need so much line on your reel, so to avoid wasting your new line, you can use backing to half fill the spool up. Backing is just a word for some cheap, thick line which you can start to fill the spool up with before finishing off with the line you actually want to fish with. There's an easy way to do this which allows you to fill up the spool perfectly every time. You will need two of the same spools in order to do this. Place the new line into the bucket. Thread the line backwards through the first eye of the rod. Tie the line to the spool with the arbor knot we showed you earlier. And reel the amount of line you require onto the spool. In this case I've put about 100 yards of line on as I won't be casting that far with this reel. Cut the line and tie an Albright knot to attach some old or cheap line to use as backing. To tie the Albright knot, which connects two lengths of line, take the thicker material and fold it back on itself. Pass the thinner material through the loop you've created and begin to wrap it around the folded section. Wrapping round approximately 5 times is fine with thicker lines, but will require more if you are using very thin line or braid. Pass the end back through the loop, being careful that it comes back through the same way it went in. Moisten the knot with saliva to avoid friction melting the line and then pull it tight. Then cut the tag end and continue spooling. Reel the backing onto the spool until the spool is almost at its lip. Cut the line and take off the spool. Put the spool you've just loaded with line into the bucket. Thread the line through the first eye of the rod and tie onto the empty spool with the arbor knot as shown earlier in the video. Reel on all the line off the other spool. Now you have a perfectly spooled reel with backing and only the amount of line you will actually need without wasting any. When spooling up with braid, it is important to use some backing or lay some tape on the inside of the spool before reeling on your braid. This is because braid has no stretch and under pressure it can slip on the spool unless it has something to grip onto. We normally put a few meters of monofilament line, then tie an Albright knot to our braid and then fill up the spool.
I've been reeling all day making this video. God, my arms are aching.
There you have it. That is how to spool up a reel with backing to save cost and line wastage.
Nice.
There are so many different choices of line to put on a reel and it can be confusing to know what to use. So here is a quick guide to what we use in our fishing. For big carp fishing, we use 12 to 15 pound mono, such as this quarter carp line. On occasions we do use 15 pound sub braid. For most people getting into carp fishing, we would advise monofilament, as the stretch allows more give whilst playing fish, making hook pulls less likely. It also has less problems with wind knots. Whereas with braid you really need to wet the line before making a big cast to stop too much line flying off the spool and wrapping around the rod eyes or tangling. Braid does have advantages though, for example when fishing at range to snags where the lack of stretch makes bite indication better and gives you more chance of steering fish away from danger. Also, if you are boating out rigs hundreds of yards, then braid becomes essential for bite indication. Really though, it's a matter of personal preference. Some anglers will exclusively use one or the other material, but we believe that mono is a great starting point. However, if your angling takes you places where fishing very far out is important, then you may wish to switch to braid. For general coarse fishing we use Guru dragline from 4 pound to 10 pound breaking strain. The lighter lines are perfect for float or feeder fishing. We like to use 4 pound for most of our float fishing and 6 pound for feeder work, unless there are snags or hard fighting fish like barbel or big carp present. That is when we step up to 8 or 10 pound line to ensure we don't lose tackle or fish. For lure fishing, braid is necessary as it has no stretch, so it makes working lures and feeling for bites much easier. We currently use 8 strand braid from 10 pound breaking strain for perch fishing all the way up to 50 pound for pike fishing. If casting is not important to you, then a 4 strand braid will suffice, but 8 strand is lower in diameter and much easier to cast. The only downside being it's more expensive. Our reasoning behind using 50 pound braid for pike fishing is because often treble hooks get stuck in snags beneath the surface. With 50 pound braid you can pull really hard and straighten out the hooks, meaning you don't snap up and leave big hooks in the water. It's also worth mentioning that braid has a very thin diameter, so it makes lure fishing in deep water easier due to less water resistance. Lastly, whatever material you have chosen to spool up with, it's a good idea to give a freshly spooled reel a few short casts before really giving it a big whack out there. The reason for this is because whilst you're reeling on the fresh line, sometimes there can be slack caught in there. If you go for a big cast straight away, that line can fly off the reel and create bad wind knots, which obviously you don't want. So by giving it a few small casts, reeling the line on, bedding it on properly, you'll have no problems whatsoever. Thanks for watching our guide to line choice and how to spool up a fishing reel. I hope you found it useful. Be sure to click subscribe to never miss another fishing tutorial. We'll see you in the next one soon.